Hi, I'm Brad Sarin, Superintendent of the Sun Prairie Area School District. Joined with me is Dr. Steph Leonard, Dr. Sarah Chaya-Clardy, Dr. Kurt Mold, and Director Rick Miller, and we are here to present Student Result Policy 2 from the Board of Education. And we are excited to present this because it represents a revision in the board's result policies and then also a revision in our monitoring reports for the board's policies. So SR-2 says that the district will make reasonable progress each year toward being literate and numerate across academic disciplines, achieving academic growth with a focus on improving academic outcomes for students experiencing significantly lower rates of success, gaining the necessary academic, non-cognitive skills to be prepared for college, career, and life readiness, and demonstrating mastery of content, knowledge, skills, and competencies through multiple opportunities and assessment. You'll hear this at the end too, but we are excited to report to the board and to the community that of the 12 measures that are embedded in this monitoring report, we see that 9 are marked as either making reasonable progress or reasonable progress with exceptions noted. 2 of the 12 we're going to report to the board and the community that we have failed to make reasonable progress, and 1 of these measures we are establishing a baseline. And so from here, I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter to begin to explain some of the details of this monitoring report.
Thanks, Dr. Sarin. One of the challenges in understanding how we would discuss and talk about measures was to determine how we both set reasonable and ambitious goals at the same time. You will see a link to what is called a progress descriptor document at the top of each of the SR2 and SR3 documents. You will, when you open that up, you will see that that will take you to a key that district administration used to determine how and when reasonable progress or failure to make reasonable progress or reasonable progress with exceptions noted was determined. The challenge in this was to go to the research base around what acceptable measures in research are out there to determine reasonable progress for academic and other non-cognitive factor growth for schools. Those links to that research are included in the slideshow, and I would invite you throughout this presentation to press pause and to visit this document and others to understand and dive in a little bit further into how we determined how reasonable progress was going to be noted in this report. And just a quick note that we have continued to move forward with definitions of 3rd grade and 8th grade reasonable progress, but we also then have embedded the redefining ready descriptors, which are used throughout our state and our country. A lot of times they show up in profile of a graduate work, but those are the descriptors that we've used and the measures we've used within the research base to help us understand how our outcomes would be determined for these reports. I'd also invite you then to look at the data review playbooks included for the district and each school. The board has indicated to us many times over that not only do we want to see aggregated data at this level, but we also want to see detailed disaggregated data for each of these measures. You are invited to press pause at this time and dive into the disaggregated data playbooks. Those data playbooks are available for each school and for our district-wide data. And so what you'll see here, the SR2 and later the SR3, each one of those data points has a deeper dive included in these data playbooks. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Rick Miller, to begin the discussion about literacy.
Thanks, Kurt. So board result expectation 1 says that we will make reasonable progress each year towards having students be literate and numerate across academic disciplines and achieve academic growth with a focus on improving academic outcomes for students experiencing significant lower rates of success. On this measure, we have 3 areas, 2 that made reasonable progress, those that are highlighted green, and 1 that failed to make reasonable progress, which is highlighted red. On the next slide, we're going to talk about some of the work that occurred last year in pursuit of achieving this goal. And so here, I'm going to share some information we provided last year to you as well. We provided training for district curriculum leaders last year on reading research. We increased community engagement around the topic of the need to improve early literacy outcomes for students through the Right to Read, community engagement, and viewing series. Last year, our curriculum steering committee worked with educators throughout the system to unpack academic standards in literacy, and we worked to select new universal instructional resources. Last year, we, at the elementary level, had a bridge year in literacy where we implemented 4K through 5 additional instruction in phonemic awareness using a resource called Hegarty. And we increased the structure and rigor of our phonics instruction using a resource called UFly. We also provided additional explicit guidance in handwriting. And these resources were used throughout the school year last year and continue to be used in our system now for supplemental instruction. Sarah?
Thanks, Rick. In middle school, we had last year used the units of study as our universal literacy curriculum for reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language. That was the what of our instructional program. And then we also have Avid Schoolwide at all of our middle schools. And so the Avid Schoolwide leads into some of the how for that instructional delivery. Here you can see 3 examples from our middle schools. On the left is a close reading activity where students read the text 3 times, and each time that they go through a read, there are different prompts and different cues for what students should be studying and noticing. The second photo is a picture of students' work on character exploration with Costa's levels of questioning about text, where students are taught how to have different levels that deepen their learning by getting more rigorous through the questions and question prompts that they're working through. And the third is a group working with a silent debate. So instead of having an oral debate, here they're reading a text, having questions that they're answering, and then writing to communicate their opinions to one another. In addition, last year, we knew that as we were rounding out our use of the units of study, that there had been some gaps. And so if you look at the next slide, you can see our work that was done across our middle schools in coordination with our educators, our coordinators, to create and then deliver on a secondary literacy support plan. And so there were 3 components of this literacy support plan. In green here, the top left is a screenshot of the universal support for students to increase both staff knowledge and skills in 3 particular high leverage strategies to address phonics skill gaps for students. So students worked on multisyllabic word routines, morphology routines like word study, and then semantic gradient word routines. So all students in our middle schools worked on those universally. The supplemental support for students who are in need of additional support beyond that universal explicit phonics instruction worked particularly around vocabulary instruction. And then for a smaller subset of students who needed intensive support, they deepened their literacy learning through work with some of our reading strategists, interventionists, and people who provided the deepest level of support. Rick?
Thanks, Sarah. So as I mentioned before, last year, an important part of our work to ensure rigor in our curriculum throughout the system is to really spend time with all educators 4K through 12, digging into the essential standards and really unpacking them to understand what they mean. And then we can use that information in planning for instruction and assessment of students as well. So that was an important system-wide effort last year, and that continues to have implications into our practices going forward. Next, we're going to shift to a focus on numeracy with the same language from board result expectation number 1. We have 3 measures here for numeracy. And 2 made reasonable progress. Those are highlighted green, and 1 failed to make reasonable progress, which is highlighted in red. Again, we're going to share some of the information about work that was going on in the system last year. to improve outcomes in this area. So at the elementary level, we worked on deepening implementation of our universal curriculum. Photo on the left shows that every classroom has what appears in this picture. Bridges universal instructional resource includes number corners, and so we really are leaning into making sure that this is being done with fidelity in all instructional spaces. And then on the right, you can see a photo of that curriculum work going on last year in steering committee, where we focused on identification of essential supporting and reportable standards and making sure that those are aligned across our system so that the student learning experience is really coherent from grade level to grade level. In addition, we had professional development for all educators to make sure that every educator in our system had the resources and strategies to support children when they need supplemental instruction in mathematics. Sarah?
So while we take snapshots at 3rd grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade, certainly our work around mathematics instruction and programming transpires all of the years. But here are some examples of our 8th grade algebra students in action in our middle schools. And you can see here the work that our students are doing both independently and in group work to be able to engage with their learning of mathematics and to have the necessary scaffolds and supports to be able to access that learning in their algebra class. And so here you can see some students working, as I said, in collaborative groups. They're transforming and doing some graphing of linear equations and really showcasing what learning looks like in 8th grade. Moving on to the next slide, part of the work of our steering committee last year had culminated 2 years worth of work in gathering 5 different components of mathematics instruction and looking at research, grade level instruction, student outcome data, qualitative data collection, and with the adoption of our new Wisconsin standards for mathematics, the committee put all of that together and made a plan across last year to create some adjustments for mathematics moving forward, beginning with this school year. And so the outcome of all of that research, time, energy, and collaboration, feedback gathering from our care holders really informed that beginning this year now, we will be shifting to grade level math in grades 6, 7, and 8. On our next slide, we can see that across grades 8 through 12, we have adopted the resource IXL, which is a supplemental learning support program for all students to be using, in addition to our core resources at the 8th through 12th grade levels. And this was a strategy that was employed across our mathematics classrooms, and particularly what's showcased here is a challenge we had amongst educators to increase student usage and really drive that performance of supplemental learning so that students were able to advance themselves even further with their math and close any skill gap that may be remaining. Shifting then to board result expectation number 2, which states that students will gain the necessary academic non-cognitive skills to be prepared for college, career, and life readiness. You can see there are 3 assessment measures here. The first assessment measure that is highlighted in gray is highlighted gray because we set baseline with this measure this year. We had not had this measure captured in the past, and so across 23-24 we captured baseline. Highlighted in green is where we made reasonable progress, and highlighted in yellow is where you can see we made reasonable progress with some exceptions noted. This first photograph under college, career, and life readiness showcases some of the work that our middle schools do in collaboration with our high schools as our 8th graders are preparing to create their 4-year plan for high school. And so the steps for success are outlined here, and then the planning process is captured where students have a worksheet that they work through with their classroom teachers and their counselors as well as the high school counselors. They learn about the credit earning process of high school. They learn about graduation requirements. And then they use the information that they've done with academic and career planning so far to create a blueprint of what their 4 years of high school will look like. You can see on the next slide that SP30 is another area where we prepare students for college, career, and life. And it's a 30-minute course that blends together a variety of topics on a rotating schedule across the week at middle school. On Monday, students engage in community building. They do community circles, circles of power and respect through our developmental designs curriculum. On Tuesday, they're working with academic and career planning and AVID lessons and activities. Every Wednesday, our universal SEL curriculum, second step, is taught to students. On Thursday, students engage with social emotional learning, positive behavior intervention and supports lessons and activities. And then on Friday, they close out the week as they began on Monday with community building, circles of power and respect from developmental designs. And so here's an example of one calendar from the month of March last year. On slide 18, as we look at our high schoolers, we see students who are engaged in work-based learning and youth apprenticeship. So one of our goals is to have students be prepared for college, career, and life readiness by engaging in these experiences that bring them out of our classrooms and into the real world. And so we have a scholar at Oakwood Village, 2 scholars at Anamart, and then a third working through an automotive program, all engaging in coursework that earns them credit in our high schools, experience in the real world, supplemental income, and so on. That continues then on the next slide. So another one of our programs under the work-based learning category is through a partnership with an organization called Root to Rise. And this organization brings together students from Sun Prairie West High School with students at Meadowview Elementary School due to their proximity. The high school scholars are tutors and mentors really to the elementary school students. The elementary school students are learning then from their high school peers. And this is under work-based learning, meaning that our high school scholar is getting high school credit and a stipended salary amount for the work they're engaging with. And so then you also see an adult transition student pictured on the right who is working in a vocational placement at Bell Laboratories. So all of these are real world experiences under college, career, and life readiness. The next slide shows students as they prepare for their college journey. We have on the left a photograph of students who are accepted to Madison College, and showing our scholars they're excited last spring to think about what would be coming up for them in the fall. And then on the right is one example of our FAFSA night that we hold for students and their families to be able to learn about the financial aid process and how that works for applying for financial aid for students and families who are planning to attend college and be able to access that financial aid. Slide 21, similar to middle school, high school also follows a calendar, but their calendar for SP30 is different than the middle schools. SP30 at high school is a pass-fail grade where they earn a quarter credit by completing these lessons that are shown on the screen. And so each grade level has a different set of lessons that occur in our course program called Zello, and those lessons are tied to academic and career planning. And so you can see across the months when these lessons occur. SP30 at the high school has these academic and career planning lessons happening on Monday and Friday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in that same time period. Students are working on intervention and extension activities. The third area under this category is attendance. Our district emphasizes the importance of attendance for every child every day, starting with our youngest learners. Since COVID and distance learning, we have reviewed and revised our attendance policies, procedures, and practices to promote engagement and reduce habitual truancy. And this was the work of a pretty extensive group of individuals working on attendance last year, and we know this work will continue into the future. The third board result expectation is that students will be able to demonstrate mastery of content knowledge, skills, and competencies through multiple opportunities and assessments. Again, we have 3 assessment measures listed on the right. The first of which is noted as making reasonable progress with exceptions noted, and therefore it's highlighted yellow. The 2 subsequent indicators have made reasonable progress, and those are highlighted green. So as we look to demonstrating mastery and students who are engaged in learning at the high school level in the areas of ELA, math, science, and social studies, both having high levels of proficiency and or earning credit attainment. You can see on the left some AP biology students. This is a science class where students are working on what's called a roly-poly animal behavioral lab, so some hands-on learning with the sciences in our high schools. On the right, we see our English 9 students who are creating one-pagers to analyze their novels. And creating one-pagers is another AVID strategy. Our high schools are also AVID school-wide. And those one-pagers then get created, populated, and put on the wall for students to participate in a gallery review walk that then they're able to review and check each other's learning and collaborate around what happened during the reading of that text. Continuing on the left-hand side, we see a high school algebra class. So we do have both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 available currently to our high schoolers. And last year, this is a photo of one of our staff members doing a review day with our algebra students. On the right-hand side, this is an example that comes from English 12, where students are reading the text Beartown and doing note-taking on the author's craft. And so this would be another strategy to be able to take a lot of information and be able to use this graphic organizer to compartmentalize the information, process it, and have a deeper level of understanding. Across last year, we had a committee of educators working throughout the year to revise our grading guidelines, and then worked across the year last year and now into this upcoming year on what those grading guidelines and expectations mean for our students. And so last year we created this grading and reporting guideline that has all of the different areas featured on the screen, clearly communicated to our staff. On the right-hand side, we know that some students need some supplemental learning opportunities beyond what is available to students between 8:35 and 3:45. And so at both East and West, there's fifth hour tutoring. And in fifth hour tutoring, students can get access to supports for homework, they can study with their friends, there's teachers available for help, and then there are makeup tests. So this happens multiple times throughout the week, every week of the school year, and transportation is provided for students who need it. Another area that is being assessed is graduation rate. And so we hold 4 graduations each year here in the Sun Prairie Area School District to celebrate and honor our scholars' achievements. We hold graduations for our West High School students, our Prairie Phoenix Academy students, our East High School students, and then also in the center here, we do have a graduation for our adult transition program. And so this is really the culmination of 13 years of excellence in education in our school district. Steph.
Thank you, Dr. Chaya-Clardy. As Brad said at the beginning, very pleased to announce that we are recommending this as a rating of reasonable progress with exceptions noted. There are 12 assessed categories, 9 showing reasonable progress and or reasonable progress with exceptions, 2 with a failure to make reasonable progress, and 1 that's a data set that's baseline data for this year. Typically at this point in a report, we look back on the last time we presented data and bring forward the things we indicated we'd work on at that time and give you an update on how we're doing. At this time, the last time we presented SR-2, we were recovering from the pandemic. And so our strategic actions were around pandemic recovery. Happy to report that we have moved beyond COVID and are finding our new normal very well as we move forward into the 24-25 school year. So with respect to the 24-25 school year, these are the strategic actions on which we'll focus to continuously improve our outcomes. We will fully implement our ELA curriculum, K-8. We will continue to grow our dual language immersion program this year moving into the first grade, so 5K in first grade. And we will provide targeted literacy training for leaders and educators 4K through 5 and special education teachers 4K through 12. Our leaders have started their work with CISA 6, part of the required training from Act 20, but more importantly, really good learning around the pedagogy related to reading and leadership to ensure that we're leading our schools in a manner that lead to better outcomes. Our educators will start their deepened training related to pedagogy in the spring, some of which has already started, and they'll continue that work into the spring. This year, we'll be unpacking the math essential standards so that we can lay the foundation to continuously improve our math outcomes. And finally, we'll continue our review of elementary attendance policies. We dug deeply on secondary over the past 2 years, and then we'll shift our focus to elementary this year while continuing to do meetings with our secondary team to make sure that the adjustments we made make sense and keep us on track. And so with that, we're closing out our SR2. As Kurt said near the beginning of the presentation, we welcome you to press pause through the video to dig deeply into the links for the data playbooks, which give you disaggregated data at the site level. And please, as always, feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. We look forward to discussing this with you further at our upcoming school board meeting. Thank you very much.